Hey, welcome back, everybody. HSC podcast number 13. Lucky or unlucky number 13? I guess we'll find out when we put in our final four picks. Is it lucky or is it unlucky? As always, Big Box Steve on the mic. We got Derek, the Big Smooth, Fresh Wes, back again. Wes missed the Sweet 16. Where, man, we were
horrible.
We didn't do so well.
Well, that's the whole thing. It wasn't sweet. It was bad, and I needed a couple weeks just to recover from the terrible brackets
I
that
mean,
I had.
It was rough for all of us. Like none of us. I don't think any of us had a great bracket.
I think Kentucky was probably the worst pick I've ever picked in my life.
Well, I mean, who's picking St. Peter's there? I mean,
You
don't know a lot about basketball if you're picking St. Peter's. Yeah, that's just you're just guessing at that point because realistically, Kentucky should win that game. So that was a rough one. But the tough part about the Sweet 16, at least when we were talking through it, Derek, it was like there was some games that made sense, and then after we picked them, I looked back and I was like, why I should have picked Duke. I had them anyway in my bracket, but then I went against them in my picks, last week. So there's a couple of games like that I was like, why did I go that way? In our picks. So hopefully we'll do better in the final four.
Yeah. Probably not.
But before we get into the final four, and we do want to talk a little bit more about the NFL, we have to talk about the Oscars. We can't let this go unsaid. There's a couple of questions that I have for you guys, but what was the knee-jerk reaction? Like, not reading any articles afterwards, like the first time you saw it, the first couple hours, we all heard about it, but what was you guys' knee-jerk reactions?
My reaction stayed the same. I was like, what was what was Will Smith thinking? It was like, you can't just go up and hit somebody.
Right.
On global TV.
And like Charlie Murphy would say, is you don't slap a man. Because even when it's fashionable in the old days, they challenge you to a duel.
Yeah.
And somebody had to die.
Well, if you saw in the pictures, Chris Rock was ready. He put his hand in that, but then he calmed down. But I was like, right. Man, you just don't slap someone and then go back to your seat.
Yeah. So a little crazy there. So Wes, what was your first reaction?
So I was sitting down just about ready to eat, but I didn't have the sound up. I forgot, I was just getting things together, but I saw him say something over to Will Smith's table, and my first reaction was I saw her, and she was mad.
Yeah.
And he's laughing, and I'm like, what did he say? And then all of a sudden, you see him walk up on stage. And I'm like, what? And then the slap happens, and then, watching it on ABC, they totally cut it out.
Right.
And then, because when he went back to the table, I think Will Smith was like, you could just read his lips, keep my wife's name out of your mouth. But then they just cut, because there's probably a lot of swearing or cussing or whatever, and they just shut everything off. So
yeah, you didn't get any sound in the States.
No, I was just reading lips. But
thankful for the internet, you had the Japanese version and everything.
Australian version.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, I was like, that's fake. At first, I was like, no, it's because when I watched it, I was like, no, I don't think he hit him, because I mean he took a full swing, and Chris Rock, it barely faced him.
Yeah, just
I'm like, this
is a man.
This is all a setup at first, and then realizing later, it's like, then I going back through the pictures and the video, and I'm like, no, it looks like he hit him.
No, he definitely hits him.
Yeah.
How hard? Like, I guess that's so. So just to address that, this is a conspiracy now, right? So you got all the people talking about that this is fake, right? So let's pretend for a second this is a conspiracy, right? Whether you believe it or not, in your mind, just pretend it's conspiracy. What do they get out of this as a conspiracy? Why would you make this a conspiracy? Why would this happen?
Well, Chris Rock has sold out all of his shows
Okay,
since this happened.
So Chris Rock's making money.
So I don't know what it benefits Will Smith at all, but Chris Rock sure is benefiting from it.
Right.
But it benefits. I mean, as far as the Oscars is concerned, because every year it seems like they complain about the ratings going down.
Right.
And I guess this last Oscars was the second worst ratings ever, even with all this crap, But at the same point, if people aren't watching in the first place, why would you do some way? So people are going to tune in the next day.
Right, because you're
It's
not
not really
getting any
helping their ratings.
No, you're not getting any ratings out of it.
And then you go on the wires and they start talking about, well, I guess at first the rumor was they asked Will Smith to leave. They wanted him to go, right? And he's like refused to go. And then, then there's other things where they say, well, he wasn't asked to go and all this stuff. And the Academy is really mad and all this stuff. It's they don't care.
So I seen some things, people talking about how, maybe this is drawing back attention to not just the Oscars, but the celebrities and movies in general, like getting people more involved back into this because they have had really poor ratings, and that's why there's some people out there saying this could be staged. So I thought that was an interesting one. I don't think it was staged personally, but I just kind of think, what are the benefits out of that? Obviously,
yeah, because the look on her face was just like,
that's
and you
not
just
staged.
thought it's
That's
over.
not staged.
It's not staged. That is a woman that's like, what?
Yeah, that was some
What
scorn.
did you just say? But then it cuts away, and she probably looked at Will. And what I've seen on Facebook is she's got him by and she's basically looks at him like, what are you gonna do about this? And he's laughing, and he's like, oh.
Well, yeah, he lets her sleep around with other men, but when someone talks about her hair, like it's like
that's the one we've heard the most, right? So I think the biggest dig, or whatever you want to call it, that you've seen around this whole thing is that everybody keeps coming back to this. You're gonna let your wife sleep around on you, because they had like a whole full-on video conference about it, right? Where she's like, this is why I cheated on you, because you should have known, right? And you weren't being a good husband, which is horrible, and you're doing that in front of a big audience as well. But this is, and so this is maybe a culmination of, him just keep getting beat down by her, and then that comes down. But then it's like, so then I take the other side. Just for me, at some point, you got to control yourself in that situation. If you're Will Smith, like, you can't just go and assault somebody, because that is assault, and there's a lot of reputation that's going to happen in there. There's a lot of things that you're going to lose in this when you do something like that. It's in front of millions, in front of your peers, and things like that. So no matter what, how much Jada was pushing him, that you still got to have some control if you're Will Smith, right?
Watching the Oscars habitually for, probably since I was 12, watching that, I was kind of in shock. I was like, no, this is all staged. And thinking that in my head, I'm like, I changed channel. I was like, I changed to ESPN. I'm like, I don't even care. Like, this is dumb. It's like, this is not why I watch the Oscars, for like some
right.
Jerry Springer. And I'm not watching it for some Jerry Springer moment here. I'm like, I actually care about the artists and the movies, even though I've only seen like 2 of them. it's still, it was really, I felt awkward. I mean, this is weird. Like, and then Chris Rock's reaction, that was just even more shocking. You're just like, look on his face, and you're like, wait a minute, it's probably staged. You go, you look surprised. Like, this is not,
You
you
can't
know,
Trying to
react.
process it.
You can't
Yeah.
react any better though than Chris Rock does, right?
oh yeah,
Because, I mean, I think professionally, as a person, you know, and there's no way you can react any better than Chris Rock
Yeah.
does in that situation, because
he came out definitely ahead,
yeah,
and
I think he won there, because yeah, he could have,
yeah,
it could have turned into a fight, it could turn into a lot of different things. And you know, one of the funny things is, like, a lot of people are talking about how it's fake because it looks like Chris Rock leaned in and was expecting it. But I think Chris Rock was actually leaning in, expecting Will to like say something to him. I thought when he was walking up, he's like, oh, he's going to tell me something like, hey, you know, watch your mouth or don't do that. And so he leans in a little bit and then he gets slapped, you know. So I think that whole, like, he was expecting it, he was leaning in thing, I think that's what that was. He was leaning in to, like, thinking, oh, here comes a colleague who's going to talk to me, you know, instead not slap me.
Well, let's make no mistake about it. Will Smith's career is not going to hurt from this. Not at all.
I mean, they're already making him out on some sides to be a hero, right? There's some sides of the fence that are taking that about him standing up for his wife and standing up for people not being able to you know, make fun of or have jokes about, whether it be a disease and they're going to pass it into, you know, sexuality and LGBTQ plus, and, you know, all those things are going to pick up on that and jump on that bandwagon as well, you know. And don't get me wrong, like, there's two parts of that. Like, there is comedy, and you should expect that. Like, comedy's comedy, it's part of the game, and you know that's going to happen. There's been much worse said in many different situations, even in the Oscars. But at the same time, you know, should Rock be more conscious of that? Maybe, you know. So there's a couple sides to that, but there's no reason to assault someone, right? There was a couple of good things, and for those listening, you haven't seen them, and if you guys haven't seen them, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar post is a really good one, and the Jim Carrey comments I thought was really good.
What did Jim Carrey say?
The first thing I thought was great. He was like, I would have sued him for $200 million, which I thought was funny because, well, anyway, he makes a really good point. What he was like, because that's going to be a meme forever. It's going to be a video forever. Like, it's Chris Rock's always going to be that guy getting slapped in the face in the Oscars, right? And there's going to be tons of memes. But to your point, Wes, to why you watch the Oscars, which I think you'll really like the Jim Carrey one for this one, is he talks about the hard work and the dedication that so many people, even outside of your stars, put into those movies in time and sweat and blood and tears, you know, to be an Oscar nominee movie. You know, it's not just that movie's not nominated because of Will Smith, you know, that, or Will Smith's not nominated, I guess, because of that, of himself. You know, it's because of all the work that all the people do on that movie. And,
Thousands.
And he's tainting it, you know, with his
that's
acting.
true. Yeah.
And that's what was most disappointing to Carrey.
So then, I changed the channel, and then literally right when I changed the channel back, he's accepting the award for best actor.
Right.
And I'm like, what? This is bizarre.
I don't even think he should have won anyway.
Right.
I mean,
Coda, I thought was going to win. I thought Coda was a really good movie.
I thought Andrew Garfield for Tick Tick Boom should have won.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, actually, you're probably right. That was really good performance.
I mean, is Will Smith? I mean, what is he? He's not. I mean,
I think
Garfield.
I don't know. Is the performance?
I mean, Garfield's performance. I mean, it's more of acting, and Will Smith basically playing himself. You know,
that's what I think. I think Will Smith was about the movie more than the performance. Is probably why he got it. So, and then the last thing, and we don't need to dig into this, but I just the other issue I have in Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and his speech or post or whatever you want to call it, his letter, he kind of addressed it, but not in the way that I want to address it. Is if you saw after this happened, they go to commercial, and I think it's there's a couple of guys over there consoling him, Denzel Washington and Tyler Perry. They're talking to Will Smith, but then also Bradley Cooper, right? Pulls him aside and talks to him for a while. What if Bradley Cooper walked up on stage and slapped Chris Rock? What would be the fallout of that, right?
Jeez. Yeah.
I mean, they're coming in, they're going to be calling it a hate crime. You know, they're going to come in and they're going to be arresting Bradley Cooper. They're going to be walking him out before he's even off stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, and if you read Freeman's, he kind of talks about the whole, you know, what he did to what's doing to the Black community, but also just like I see that difference of what if it was a white man that walked up and slapped Chris Rock? You know, what would be the fallout?
And another thing is, it's also, you know, I think it was, what is it, 2 years ago when Jervis, when he was just kind of roasted everybody at the Oscars.
Yeah.
And they panned to each star and to show their reaction. And yeah, their reactions are memes, because I mean, he was just roasting everybody, and it created so much
love that
controversy.
Oscars. That was the one I liked.
It was
the most.
great. But you know what? They all took it, even though they had the dumb looks on their faces. Some of them, they took it. You know, they got roasted. And that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to sit there and take it.
Well, a comedian's hired.
Yeah.
The comedians get paid to do that. Chris Rock, they didn't hire somebody to go up there and make like a heartfelt speech. They hired Chris Rock to go up there and make jokes.
Yeah, this is not politically correct speech here. This isn't your safe space. You know, you're at the Oscars. You know what you're getting. I mean, look at the Golden Globes. I mean, if it was Golden Globes, they'd all be half in the bag drinking, and they wouldn't care in the first place. You know?
Well, and I think this is why no one watches the Oscars anymore, because now it's become such a self-righteous, we're Hollywood, pat ourselves on the back, we're so special and important. Then they get up and they do their speeches, and it's political, or it's Leonardo DiCaprio talking about saving the environment, and then he gets off into his own private jet.
Right.
It's like, we don't want to hear this from Hollywood. We don't care. You're not that important.
Well, and you're not as involved as you're talking on camera, right? Like he was talking about, you know, they're flying their jets around, they're not involved in the things that they're talking about. It's all
and then
publicity.
The perfect part is Will Smith gets up there and starts talking about love.
Right. Yeah.
Wait, what is he? I mean, when you slap a dude on the stage, when you like create one of the biggest Academy, probably the second biggest moment in Academy Award history that people remember was a fake jab from Muhammad Ali to Sylvester Stallone in 1976 or 1977. You know, and there was no touching there. It was, you know,
right.
It was Muhammad Ali on stage with Rocky. It's one of the most famous Oscar scenes. You know, I mean, he just created the biggest Oscar scene of all time. You know.
Yeah, and it's there's a lot of things again that's wrong with that, and I also, it's like, I've seen this a lot of places, but my first thought also when I saw this was like, you know, if that was The Rock instead of Chris Rock, he's also not doing that, you know? Like, he's not going to walk up stage and slap The Rock if The Rock made that joke, you know? So to me, there's a lot of things.
That would have been funny though, because you know The Rock is, you know what's going to happen there.
Right. So anyway, I mean, that was I wanted to just chat about that because I wanted to get more in depth. I know we talked about it, you know, off scene for a while, but just wanted to hear some thoughts on that. And I'm sure this is going to be unpacking for a while. And you know, maybe it is a media distraction from all the bad stuff that's happening right now, but it's not a good thing for sure.
There's so much for
Especially-
Ukraine.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like you can't
Yeah.
you can't find a Ukraine article, video, or right now, and not even
it's
that.
because we patted ourselves on the back so much. We've done so much for them. No.
Right.
Yeah.
We've done nothing.
Yeah,
Gives them blankets.
yeah, exactly. And hopefully in our next podcast we'll actually dig into that a little bit. So let's move past the Oscars. Let's talk about March Madness. Back into March Madness. We're into the Final Four. It's been for me, this year in sports, I think March Madness is like topping it. The NFL playoffs were great, but this tournament has just been awesome. I can't remember. I do remember a lot of tournaments when we were younger, because that's when tournaments were really, really good. But recently, I can't remember again another better tournament. So this year in sports has been awesome. The tournament, I think, has been great. Upsets, close games, overtime games, horrible ref calls, changing games. So there's just been a lot of stuff here. So now we're in the Final Four. We got Duke and North Carolina. You couldn't ask for, if you were writing the script, right? Wouldn't you write Duke, North Carolina in the Final Four? Mike Krzyzewski's last game, Hubert Davis's first year as a coach. He's was a player, the only player ever to coach a team in the ACC and play for a team and coach the team to a Final Four in the ACC. There's been another coach that did it, but in the ACC, he's the only one. And so let's start there. You can't ask for a better game. You can't storybook write this any better unless St. Peter's is in there, because then you got a Disney movie, So let's talk about North Carolina Duke. What happens here? What do you got, Wes?
I just think Duke's on a mission. Losing to North Carolina and Coach K's last home game was probably not the best thing for North Carolina now, because everybody, all the players from Duke, they wanted another shot at North Carolina, and they wanted it in the ACC tournament. They didn't get that, so now they got it in the Final Four. They're going to be motivated. They're playing at such a high level now. North Carolina, I think, they got a puncher's chance just because of Caleb Love, the way he's playing. If he plays like that, scoring 30 points a game, their guard play, if they hit their shots, they got a chance. But I'm going to take Duke just because, talk about a storybook ending. It's cliche, but everyone's talking about it. And then it would be the record, Coach K, since he's been at Duke, it's 50-49 Duke.
Right.
So he beats North Carolina. He has a winning record against North Carolina all time. They get to the championship game, and in my opinion, I think it's going to be the same as his first championship game in 1991. And that was against Kansas. And they beat Kansas. So I think that's gonna be the ending that is most likely. I'm giving Kansas probably.
You're going for the storybook Coach K ending, huh?
And it's looking at my brackets, and I got 4 brackets. I don't got one of them for Duke. How do you not have that in just one of your brackets?
Right.
It's just stupid.
What do you think the point spread is going to be on the Duke North Carolina game?
I think it's 4 now. I think it's 4.
What do you call? You got Duke winning by how much?
7 or 8.
7 or 8. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Derek. How do you feel about that?
This is tough, and I'm horrible. I've been, I had such a good first round, and then I lost pretty much.
Yeah, you're
everything.
last in the bracket.
Yeah, it was, but I'm in the top 86% in the women's bracket.
we should have done NCAA women.
You're gonna hate this, Steve. I'm leaning towards Carolina because Love is playing great. Manic is playing really great.
So you're giving them the kiss of death, is what you're saying?
Huh?
You're giving them the kiss of death.
Pretty much. I mean, Armando Bacot, he's inside playing really well. They've got the inside outside game. Duke has lots of athletes.
Right.
And I will say, the thing about Duke is it's hard to put them away because they just make shots.
Yeah.
But I just feel like Carolina's hot, and I feel like Duke is going to come in a little tight because they're like, last time we played them, we lost. Coach K's last home game. Now we have all this pressure. We have to beat North Carolina to get to the, if we lose to North Carolina in Coach K's last game, that's like the worst thing possible that can ever happen. We can't let all the pressure is on all these 18, 19-year-olds.
Yeah.
Like tons of pressure. Like the point where 20 years from now, people will be talking about Coach K's last game. He lost to North Carolina in the Final Four. I mean, It's going to go down. I mean, there's so much pressure more on Duke. I mean, Hubert Davis, it's his first year. He can, if he loses this one, he'll come back. I'm going to have so much pressure on Duke in this one. I just feel like Carolina's going to play loose. And Love was looking like Donald Williams out there. He was just hitting shots from all over.
Love it in conscience. If I'm Duke, I mean, I'm doing everything in the first half to see if you can seal off Love first. Okay, let everybody else beat you. But seal off Love. Make sure he doesn't get going, because if he gets going, I mean,
you can't let Manic sit out in the corner and nail threes all game, though. The guy scoring 28 points.
Yeah.
He's the leading scorer in the tournament.
Yeah. I mean, it's that's the problem. So what's your point spread there, Derek? On so you're calling Carolina.
Pick them.
It's gonna be a close game?
Yeah, I think it's close.
Yeah, so I think a close game kind of favors Duke, so I hope it's not close, just because when it comes to the end of the game, if it comes down to a 1 or 2 point game, I think Duke, they do have the guys that can isolate one-on-one and make big shots. And I hate to do this myself, but I'm going to pick Carolina too. And I usually don't pick them because it's my team, and when I pick them, they lose. But I'm going to go with them just because for two reasons. So if you look at the way this tournament's gone, the way Carolina's played, they've been dominating teams. Even the Baylor game that definitely ended up being close at the end if Manic doesn't foul out, that they were up 25. They're dominating a number one seed in Baylor. They're killing people, the whole tournament. And it's not just Love, and Love's playing great, don't get me wrong, but they've had, 3 guys score over 25 points in different games. Armando Bacot is a beast. He's got now more double doubles or as many as Tim Duncan had, right? And I think he beat the record, but he can, keep going, right? It's 29 or something like that. So he's a beast in the middle. It kind of depends, if they have to rely too much on their bench, I think they might be in trouble. They got a great defender in Leaky Black that can really lock down, anybody on Duke that gets hot. So it really comes down to Hubert Davis's coaching, right? If he coaches the game well, I think they win the game. So I think those are your two factors there is, how good is Hubert Davis coaching? Can he rise to the moment as a coach? Can he not let it get out of control? Can he make sure he stays within his game and Carolina's game? Because if they do, I think Duke can't beat them. If Carolina can stay within their game, Duke can't beat them. If Duke can get them out of their game If Duke can win the one-on-one isolations, they do have a chance. But I'm still going to pick Carolina, and I'm going to take them by 6.
Ooh.
And probably just gave them the kiss of death, but I believe it.
Yeah, I mean, you bet backcourt play. I mean, you're talking about Duke in the backcourt. You're talking about Roach. Roach has been, playing really good. I think that's the deciding factor. It's like, who's going to win the backcourt when it comes to, Carolina, Duke. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, Duke's got the athletes is the problem for Carolina. If it comes up to an up and down game and Carolina can't get up early like they did on Baylor, because Baylor exposed their weakness with athleticism and pressure, and speed, and so and that's how they came back in that game. So that's what Duke has to do to beat them. But Carolina's hot right now. It's really hard to go against them. So let's switch gears to Villanova, Kansas, because I think this is why I think it's such a great tournament, because now we got Villanova, Kansas on the other side of the bracket, which I think is a great game. Kansas is blue blood, always expected to be there, not always there, but they're always getting great athletes, great players, blue chips. But Villanova over the last 10 years, but especially in the last 5 years, has been a really good team. So how does this game break down, Derek?
I'm thinking I don't trust Villanova as much as other people are. Houston, if they wouldn't have gone like 1 for 100 from 3-point range, they would have destroyed Villanova. They were hitting they were over 50% from field goal. It wouldn't have been close, but they couldn't hit a dang 3-pointer. And they kept taking him. I think it was like 1 of 28. You can't do that.
Yeah.
And Kansas is red hot. They're probably the most talented team left. They have, everyone's darling Miami. They destroyed by 26.
Yeah. Well, but Miami, reality, that was all the second half.
Yeah.
Miami just fell apart.
Yeah.
Because
Miami
was leading at half, weren't they?
Oh yeah, they were. I think they were up by
like
5
4 or 5, and then then Kansas outscored them by 33 in the second half, or something like that.
Oh yeah, Miami's game is all up and down the court, athleticism, and Kansas neutralized that,
right,
and hit their shots. And they're going to make Miami, okay, you're going to hit, you need to hit outside shots. And Miami's game isn't hitting 3-pointers.
Well, and I think to Derek's point, and Derek, you go ahead and finish out there, but I think Kansas got red hot in that second half and showed what Kansas is capable of.
Well, and then I look at also their opponents, and Kansas has already beaten 2 Big East teams in this tournament.
Right.
Miami used to be in the Big East, so you could say even 3.
Almost 3.
But Villanova, what I say about this though? Villanova played 2 Big Ten teams.
Yeah, and Derek
can't trust the Big Ten.
Can't trust the Big Ten.
And so I can't really trust Villanova, because if Houston would have made some shots, we'd be saying it was Houston, Kansas.
Right.
And I just think, I hate saying it because it's, Kansas, but I just think they're too talented. It's Bill Self. Although Jay Wright is a great coach too, I just think it's Kansas. I think it's going to be a blue blood finals. Either way, Duke or North Carolina and Kansas.
Yeah, either way, it doesn't matter which team gets in. Even Villanova at this point is getting a lot of great recruits and can be considered one of the top tier teams. But yeah, so you got Kansas by what? What's the spread? Are they going to?
I'm going to say 7.
7. Okay, so we're keeping it close again. Wes, what do you feel about that?
Yeah, in general, I think Villanova is going to try to slow the game down. They're going to, they fundamentally Villanova's, most disciplined team in the tournament. Jay Wright, he's, he has a system. His players abide by it, which I respect, because in the game of basketball, I mean, I'm watching the Nets and the Bucks tonight, or even Texas A&M and Xavier, and I'm counting how many plays they're running. They're all running 3 plays. They're all running high ball screen, motion, and isolation, which it's not even real isolation, not even a play. And so you respect a team like Villanova that's well disciplined. Houston losing that game is ridiculous. I mean, I think they went 1 for 20 from 3-point range. I mean, if they would have hit a couple of them, they could have won that game.
Right. But I mean, you can say the same thing for Arkansas Duke, like Arkansas could have won that game. I mean, so yeah, I get it, but that's the nature of the game.
Yeah. And I think when it comes down to, if we're going to talk about just players, I think Kansas's players, Remy Martin and Abaji, they're going to make the plays that Villanova they're not going to make. And that will be the difference in the game. It's probably going to be low scoring, 50s, 60s, but I'm giving the edge to Kansas.
By how much?
5.
5 or so? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a tough one for me, because I think this game could go either way. I think Kansas could blow them out, to be honest with you. Kansas could win this game by 20. But on the other hand, Villanova could win the game too if they play smart. And what I mean by smart is Kansas is a very athletic team. They're a very gifted team. But you know what they're not? They're not a very disciplined team. They're not the smartest basketball players, in the tournament. And Villanova, I think, is. There's something to be said about Wes, what you're talking about the way Villanova plays ball, the way they're coached, the way their players are, they're very disciplined. I think Villanova wins this game at the free throw line. They're one of the best free throw shooting teams in the college basketball, if not the best, right? I think that Kansas gets in foul trouble. Villanova slows the game down, keeps them in foul trouble, and Villanova wins by a small margin, maybe 3 or 4, but they win this game at the foul line, at the Kansas being undisciplined. That's my hope. So I'm going to take Villanova to play Carolina in the championship. So championship game, Villanova, Carolina. Carolina wins the championship for a Hubert Davis storybook first season. Carolina's just too hot. So my pick's Carolina to win it all against Villanova in the championship game. So championship.
So much for Gonzaga, Arizona, huh?
Wes, you said Kansas Duke, right? And you got Duke winning that game?
Yeah, I got them winning. I think they win that game fairly easily. My first reaction, I just think they have too much momentum. I think Carolina is going to be a lot tougher task just because of the pressure, just because of the magnitude of the game. I mean, they're already calling it the biggest college basketball game.
I mean, it's hard to argue
of all time.
It's hard.
And then how can you argue that as far as the ramifications? I mean, can you imagine if Roy Williams is still coaching? Instead of Hubert Davis?
I think it's even better that Hubert Davis is in there because now if Coach K loses here to Hubert Davis, it's not like, oh, you lost a legendary Roy Williams.
Yeah.
I think that adds a little bit of element.
Yeah, that's true.
For Duke on that side, which I just think that makes it a little more storybook. But so what you're thinking is if they get past Carolina, they get over that hump of a game, they just walk through Kansas.
It's kind of, it reminds me, watching yesterday, I did a 30 for 30 marathon, watching the Duke 30 for 30s.
Yeah.
And, watching the 91, the 91 Final Four where they played UNLV. which, I mean, I got a picture, of me with my UNLV shirt, like the
Oh,
day of
man.
the game.
I
Dude, I
love
was like
UNLV.
totally running around. I was so mad that game. Freaking Leitner at the line, finishing off UNLV's perfect season. And then what does Duke do the next game? They dismantle Kansas.
Yeah.
And that's the way I see this. That was their first Final Four. They won the championship. And I think that's the way they finish off Coach K's career.
That's a good look. I think that is a storybook finish, and there's something you said for that. So Derek, who you got? You got Kansas winning. You got Carolina, Kansas. So we all got 3 different finals. So
I know.
What happens in the Carolina, Kansas game?
Well, I got to go Kansas, right? So we can have 3 different winners.
Uh-oh.
I think what's going to happen, either whoever wins Duke, North Carolina is going to be drained because you only got a day off,
Right?
And they're like so emotional, so drained. And we've seen it so many times again before, like such a huge game. And then there's a letdown the next one because it's so close to each other. And I think just Kansas just runs it down. And then Carolina's like, I don't think they're going to have a chance. I think Kansas blows them out.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to think that that's a possibility when you look at it, the Duke North Carolina game, that they're going to give it their all. I mean, these guys are going to play their hearts out on both sides of the ball, both teams, right? And so, yeah, there is a possibility that they come in, which is be great for me if Villanova wins, because then it's a better matchup for Carolina than to play Kansas. So, I mean, I could see that, I think Kansas, the hard part about Kansas is that I think they do have a chance to hurt themselves. They can shoot themselves in the foot, which I think is Kansas's downfall, probably their only downfall. And so if they could stay away from that, Kansas is tough to beat. They're a really good team, very athletic.
And if going inside, if Kansas does make it to the championship game, size does matter in a sense that McCormick in the middle, I think, is going to be a factor, and he's going to be he's going to cause Duke or Carolina problems inside. So
I think Duke more than Carolina. I think Carolina. I think Baycott can play a bit well as long as he can stay out of foul trouble. I think Baycott can play well enough to do that. So Duke, I think, will have a problem with him inside for sure.
I think we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago when it comes to Kansas. Like, we're just kind of looking at Kansas in that bracket. We're like, oh, it's freaking Kansas. Kansas isn't going to do anything this year. They end up being the only number 1 seed. And it's one of those years. I said, you never know. It might be just one of those years, which the last time that I almost won I picked the winner, was when Kansas won it and they beat Memphis, because I had Memphis, Derrick Rose winning the national title. I would have won like $1,000. And here comes Chalmers corner. I remember watching the game.
Oh, yeah.
Killing me. Like, you kidding me?
I had Kansas. I picked Kansas that year to win it all. And
Yeah.
you know why? Free throws. Like you brought up, Steve.
Yeah.
And that was the killer for Memphis. They could not
free
put
throws.
it. And I remember watching that game at Refectory, eating a prime rib because I was like, victory. I had my victory prime rib after watching Kansas win.
And I was sitting there watching them miss their Derrick Rose. Rose, you're missing your free throws. Well, I mean, they had a lead too. It was like they had a 6-point lead, in the last 2 minutes, and they lose that game because of their free throws. Exactly.
There's so much fundamentals when you're talking about the Final Four games, right? Because you're talking about teams that they're, especially these 4 teams. These teams, you're not going to go and find better athletes at any of these teams, right? I mean, a little bit, but at the same time, whether you're in Carolina or Duke or Kansas or even Villanova, these are great players, right? These are all top players, especially in the starting fives. And so it is going to come down to some fundamentals, like who doesn't turn the ball over, who makes their free throws, and who can stay within their game and stay comfortable. So there's a lot to be said there. And you know what? I'm just gonna ride North Carolina because I didn't pick them to win because I wanted them to win, and I did that on purpose. But now that they're there, I've already won the bracket, so I'm taking North Carolina.
I have to say one last thing, and it's not even with the Final Four. We have to give all the credit. St. Peter's, man.
Oh yeah,
first 15 seed to make it to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, it was so fun to watch them play, and even at the game, I told you guys both this, that I wouldn't have been disappointed if St. Peter's beat North Carolina, just because it would have been cool to see St. Peter's keep going.
The ultimate achievement, and not even just beating Kentucky, because the more I watched Kentucky, honestly, I really didn't watch them much in the SEC tournament, and it was a knee-jerk reaction of me picking them, and then watching them against St. Peter's. I'm like, I just had to. What was I thinking? Like, okay, they beat St. Peter's, but them getting to the title game, they're not that good. But the real accomplishment for St. Peter's to me was beating Purdue, because I thought Purdue had the best chance because they had the inside-outside game. How do you with Edie inside at 7'4", right, and you got Ivy outside, like one of the fastest players in college basketball, is going to be probably a top 5 pick, and to beat that team, that was an impressive victory.
I was impressed with the Murray State victory. You're talking about a team that won like 21 in a row, barely lost all year. But the reason I was also impressed with the Murray State victory was because Murray State was very athletic. And so to dominate, or not to dominate them, but to match up athletically like they did from a team from St. Peter's to a team like Murray State's not blue blood, but they definitely go to the tournament often. They get good recruits. And this year they showed a great team, but they did it in the Kentucky game, they did it in the Murray State game, they did it in the Purdue game. They out hustled, they played better defense, and they stayed within their offense better than all three of those teams.
And they had a chance against Carolina, they just weren't hitting the shots at the end. And it was crazy. They because they hustled so much. They were all around the court the whole game.
Well, they came out tired in that game. Carolina went up 20 early, and it was just like, how do you come back from that?
Right. Because they couldn't, their legs were gone because they weren't hitting, they had wide open shots and they were not.
And their bench barely played in that game. So you got to imagine how tired those guys were, because they were running hard every play the whole tournament, and I get it, and again, I wouldn't have been disappointed if St. Peter's won, but I just didn't think they had much of a chance after getting that far, getting to a team who was hot like Carolina. So that was tough for them.
And I just love the whole fact that Shaheen Holloway was the McDonald's MVP in the McDonald's game when Kobe Bryant was there. He got the MVP over Kobe Bryant.
Well, and he was playing a great tournament until he got hurt, when he played in the tournament.
Seton Hall,
yeah.
And he's now going to be the head coach of Seton Hall.
Right, which I thought that was a really cool story for him, and that's great to see somebody move up. So overall, great tournament so far. Can't wait to see the ending. I think again this year.
Imagine being in New Orleans right now.
Man,
it's like, that'd be so much fun.
Have you seen the ticket prices for the North Carolina Duke game?
Oh, I can't even imagine.
I think it was courtside was 30,000.
Jeez.
Oh, yeah.
Making it hard for regular people.
Yeah.
and so it probably goes 60,000 for that for those games. Yeah. Probably upper decks will probably be full.
It's it just gets me excited now even though the NBA hasn't been super exciting this season so far, what's going to happen in NBA now? I mean, NFL's been like this. Now March Madness is like this. Like,
No, it's
geez,
crazy. Did you see the
sports.
Milwaukee Nets game?
No.
Did you guys watch that? Stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a great game.
Yeah, so when those playoffs come up, that's the thing. It's like, what's going to happen? I mean, sports this year is just, it seems like it's been out of control. So talking the other sports, we're at NFL. You still got some good free agents out there, but you've got some good free agents signing signing now. So anything sticking out NFL wise as far as free agents?
Bobby Wagner now signing with the Rams. So
I think that was the big one for me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so the guy doesn't have an agent, right? So he does his own contracts. And he purposely went and signed with the Rams.
Yeah.
It's almost like he didn't want to sign anywhere else because the Ravens offered him really well. But it almost was like, hey, you know what, Seattle? Go ahead and cut me. Let's see what happens.
Well, Richard Sherman did the same thing.
Yep.
He went to the Niners.
Yeah.
So I think that was a big one. I heard this rumor. I don't know if you guys heard this one. Maybe OBJ to the Patriots.
Well,
he's not going back to the Rams.
No. So
I've heard he's still open to playing for the Browns again now.
Oh, now, yeah.
Well, yeah, Deshaun Watson,
buddy, man,
Amari Cooper. Yeah, so OBJ. So of the guys, there's still some guys out there, which I think is interesting. Tyron Matthews still out there. So where's he going to sign? It's kind of interesting as it plays down here. I think some of these teams can fall into some of these really good players.
Well, I've seen two places for Honey Badger. One was the Steelers. I've heard a lot about the Steelers. And the other is, what color the Honey Badger is? What a Honey Badger colors are? They're silver and black. And Max Crosby has been out there putting stuff out. Jonathan Abram is following Tyron Matthew. I feel like you think he would have signed by now. We could be waiting until June 1st.
Right.
When everyone's cap gets from all the post June 1st cuts. Because right now the Raiders have about $6 million in cap space. That's not going to do it.
No.
But then after June 1st, they'll have over 20 million. So I've been hearing that he's waiting it out till June 1st.
Which I think maybe some of these big names you might run into that. And I wonder, like maybe Gronk, maybe he goes back to Tampa Bay now that Brady's back.
Sue wants to go back.
Yeah. So there's some big names out there. I think that's interesting. But one other thing, so we got a rule change, right? So for the overtime rules, so the owners agreed to that. So first, what are your guys' reactions to the new overtime rules?
It's a knee-jerk reaction, but it's fine. I don't care either way. Now at least if it happens in overtime, now no one can complain that they didn't have a chance.
Right. In the playoffs anyway, right?
Right. Yes.
So Wes, what do you think of that? Should it be the same in the playoffs as the regular season? Does that matter? Or
I think it should just stay for the playoffs. The regular season, I mean, you start getting into games where, the first offense scores and the second offense scores, and then what happens after? It's sudden death, right?
Right.
The games are just gonna be, they'll be
So too much potential for a long game.
There's just too much. Yeah, as someone said, more football isn't always better football.
Right.
When it comes to, when we're talking regular season. So I think, yeah, making it just for the playoffs is probably the best. Is for the best. It's kind of weird though, because, you know, let's both teams score a touchdown. And so what this, deciding, you can have some potentially long playoff games, especially if, the team's got to punt once or the other team's got to punt or there's a turnover.
You're not going to get into it that often, though. I think it's going to be rare occasions where you're going to have overtime games.
But as far as, I hear defensive players complaining, like, and I understand the argument, like 10 years ago, the argument is, well, if the defense can't stop them, they deserve to lose.
Right.
Well, the whole game's geared for the offenses. That's all there's to it.
Bengals did it.
Yeah, the Bengals did do it.
Well,
What was the stats? It was 7 out of 12 times a team scored first to win. I mean, what is that? 60%? 60% of the time the defense held them on their first possession. So it makes everybody feel better, but I don't think it really matters. It kind of sucked in the Kansas City example because it was such a great game. You wanted to see Josh Allen. You felt bad for Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Well, let's see it. Let's see if he can match that.
Well, exactly, because you're talking about, though, two teams that are hot on offense at the time, even though the Bills on paper had a better defense. But right there, you have two teams that are hot on offense. So them not getting the ball is taking it away from what they're doing really well at the time.
Yeah.
I felt, though, was it necessarily that great of a game? Because it looked like arena football.
I mean, it's fun to watch. So it may not be a great game, but it's fun to watch.
I mean, we saw, like, when they went down and scored before, or got into field goal range, and like you weren't even close. I don't care, like, if the rules are you can't touch someone, at least you can be by them.
Yeah.
And no one was near Kelsey and no one was near Hill. And then gosh, I can't even remember what's the receiver for Buffalo that had over 200 yards. He was wide open half the time.
Yeah. And being a traditionalist that I am, like, I love watching old 70s football games where, it's like both teams had an agreement. We're going to run the ball until you can stop it. And then when you stop it, then we throw the football, and we throw the football past 10 yards. There's no West Coast offense. And, the games were in, the teens and sometimes they're in the 20s, but that was traditional football. That's what I miss about today's NFL. And so the Kansas City Buffalo game, everyone thought it was the greatest game ever. I agree with Derek. It's like, it's a little bit too much. Guys are wide open. There's plays all over the field. There's no locking down anybody.
That's what people want to see, though.
That's what people want to see. Exactly. That's why you have the new overtime rule.
There's nothing wrong with an exciting, high-scoring game, for 90% of fans. There are going to be, and of course, people who play football and love football and have watched football all their life see the differences and see that, and so I get that. I like the rule change. I'm okay with it just being in playoffs as well. I just like the fact that you're going to say, equal chances for both teams. And so that's good. There's another rule that the owners put in place, or the leagues put in place. I don't know necessarily how much the owners had to do with it, but so now a team has to hire an offensive assistant that is a person of color or a female, mandatory. So it's not a Rooney Rule anymore where you have to interview them. You have to hire an offensive assistant, a person of color or female. So I just wanted to get your guys' reaction to that.
Why does it have to be? I don't get it. It's like it has to be an offensive assistant. Why is that like such a big deal? I mean,
Gonna be
it's not a
defensive
def.
assistant. I know. I thought it was interesting too.
Defense doesn't matter.
My first thought was, why did they make it just offensive, right? Why wouldn't it be offensive defense? So that was my first thought. But
Right.
but why? I guess, you know, is it okay to force them to make these hires, or does it matter? Like what are you guys' feelings?
I think it's one of those like the Rooney Rule where it's like we're trying to do something right, but it's just going to backfire. Because how are you going to respect these assistants that come in when all you know is, oh, they're there because they're black or because they're a woman? That's why they're getting this job. Not, and it couldn't be, you know, they could be great assistants,
Yeah.
but no one's going to think about that. They're going to be like, well, they got that job because of this. Be no different than like the owner putting his son or something as the assistant coach. Then you're going to be like, well, that's the owner's son. That's why he's the assistant coach. Now it's going to be like, oh, that's why we have this offensive assistant.
So maybe the NFL is actually tainting their job or this person's job by forcing the rule. That's pretty
Right.
valid. Yeah. What are your thoughts, Wes?
Yeah. It's tough for the person that, I mean, that's getting the hire. I mean, just like with any job, you have to prove yourself, and you're coming in with certain expectations that, you know, you didn't get the job, you know, you didn't earn the job the way that someone else earned the job. But just like anything else, the people that they're going to hire, that, you know, they're going to have to go out there and prove that, you know, they're worthy of the job, and most of them will. But just like I was watching, I hate Christian Leitner talking about being on the dream team. You know, you got the only college player on the dream team, right? Which, you know, made him feel awkward. And he said half the players accepted me, half the players made me carry their bags. And that's what I did. And so you're going to have, you know, certain assistant coaches, people within the organization that respect you. You're going to have people that don't. At the end of the day, this is the reality of the world that we live in. It makes everybody feel better. So whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. You know, I think that's it is kind of the reality, or it is the world we're living. I don't know that it should be called the reality, but it is the world we're living in, right? And the NFL has historically been bad about, you know, giving equal opportunity to people of color, and women, probably even worse than people of color, right? You probably make a bigger case for that. So yeah, I think the NFL is trying to do something, take a step in the right direction. I can't say that I love the mandatory hire. You know, that's a tough one for me. When you tell someone they have to do something, you know, you have no choice. So that's a tough one. But I also think that if we're in a time where we can do it, just because there's so many qualified of everybody. I don't care what color or you know, woman, man, black, white, yellow, green, like it doesn't matter, right? So many people are qualified now to coach or to be assistants, offensive assistants, that I think it's probably the right time for this to now say that, you know, let's just make it happen. And make, you know, integrate them a little bit more, because the percentage of difference that you're going to have versus the person that you really want versus the person you have to hire, it's going to be so similar, right? They're going to have very similar skills. They're going to be very close, you know, as far as their abilities.
And if you really want somebody, I mean, the new thing now is they can be a consultant. They can be an outside consultant. You know how, you know, I mean, there's always that angle. Yeah, I think it's about the right time. And
Well, I think that's why they call it an offensive assistant, right? So
Yeah.
they're just an assistant coach. They're not a coordinator. They're not necessarily handling because that's what you can make them at that. So I thought it was an interesting change. I thought that we'll see how it plays out for the NFL, but I think it was a good time for them to implement something and to get away from something like the Rooney Rule, which I think was kind of a joke. And hopefully they can just get away from that. And maybe that means you just required it. It's not even interviewing anymore. Like,
yeah. How does the Rooney Rule work for Eric Bieniemy? How's that worked out for him?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of,
well, there's supposed to be 2 more plaintiffs joining Flores pretty soon.
Right. Well, people are going to jump on that bandwagon for sure, right? I mean, look what happened with Kaepernick. I mean, how many people rolled down that snowball?
There's always a USFL.
Where did you see?
Next.
What was it? TO? What is that one? Where Johnny Manziel's at right now? I think it's like a 7-on-7 or something.
No, it's a fan controlled league.
Oh, all right.
I think it's out of Arizona. But basically, I guess it's a league where people can buy in and they basically can call plays and run, the offense and defense.
Nice.
TO's coming out of
the highest
retirement.
bidder. It's kind of a good idea. It's kind of cool, but
and Manziel's owning it.
Yeah. It's not fair that it goes to the highest bidder though. I mean, should be, All
right, good stuff, guys. Let's wrap up here. Final thoughts, Oscars, Final Four, NFL. Derek, final thoughts.
Well, it's going to be interesting. It's basically our whole life. Coach K has been at Duke. So it's going to be one of those things like Wes was talking about the 30 for 30. I hate Leitner. And I think about you, Steve, as a North Carolina guy. Stefan was a Duke guy. Is you were either with them or against them. Mm-hmm. And that's the way. And I'm sorry, Duke, I'm against you. So go Tar Heels.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how many times did me and Stefan play North Carolina Duke on the Nintendo? Wes, what do you got? Final thoughts?
Kind of in the same. So, I didn't even know, and I'm pretty good at sports history when it comes to at least the 3 major sports. But I totally forgot that 1986, that was Duke's first Final Four appearance. And they played in the championship game and lost to Louisville by 3 points. And that's a really good 30 for 32. It's the 30 for 30. It says the guys that saved Coach K, because everybody wanted Coach K out
right
after a few years at Duke because they were terrible. And that was the year that it saved his career. But then watching later and getting into the era when I actually watched college, I think the first college game I actually really remember was Danny Manning.
Oh,
and in Kansas,
that 88
playing in the Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first one. So, and that's when I really started getting enthralled, and then UNLV, and then the Fab Five. And I was a huge Michigan, Fab Five, and just watching Duke dismantle them. I was never a Duke fan until I started watching the 30 for 30. So I'm like, you know what? Now I would have been more of a Duke guy, because I mean, just playing the game the way the game's supposed to be played. And that's what I miss about basketball in general is, hey, let's run some plays, let's run the 4 corners, let's see some back cuts. And
dirty basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's see Christian Laettner stomp on somebody's chest. and not get thrown out of the
Oh
game
man.
and hit the greatest shot of all time in college basketball.
Yeah, that shot against Kentucky was amazing.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, it's just, it makes it, I've had a hard time watching things, even the tournament. Sometimes I kind of fall asleep at some of the stuff, but watching those 30-30s, I was just, it was cool.
You know what's funny? I was watching the first Duke UNLV national championship game the other day, because it was amazing how they just destroyed them.
Oh, I remember that game. Yeah.
oh yeah.
30 points, 102 to 72. I remember that game. That was the greatest game ever. Till then, yeah.
Just to wrap it up here again, I can't reiterate like how great sports have been up to this point in 2022. Through the NFL playoffs and the March Madness. And so that's my final thought, is that I feel like sports are back a little bit this year. And I think that's a great thing. So, everybody watching and just for all of us, it's just nice to see. It kind of gets me excited for what's going to happen in the Masters too. Like,
Oh yeah.
maybe Tiger Woods is going to slap somebody. So, whenever. But yeah, so good stuff, guys. Great podcast. If you guys are watching out there, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the notification so you can see the upcoming videos. If there's anything you want to see us do, definitely hit that in the comments. Hopefully you guys will be able to join the next one. Big Mike will be back this weekend for a podcast, so I'll let you guys know, see if you can join. And we're going to be talking stuff happening in national media. So thanks again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for a good podcast, guys. Talk to you soon.